want you to, here's what I like about you. You care, right? And you've done a very good job to the extent that you're able to, right, of trying to educate yourself about our policies, our laws, our everything. What I want you to do now is, if you're willing to put the time in, right, I like the fact that you're holding us accountable. That's good, right? And there are some things that you could absolutely be doing some good work for. I just don't know that you're barking up the wrong, or the correct tree on this one. This one's kind of a, there's nothing here. But there is other things that you could be absolutely doing some better work for, okay? So I can't move on with other bigger priorities until this one is done. The point of this is to invite you to May 4th. We have a Find the Blue in You. I can email you the information if you want. It's basically down at our training center. The intent is it's a recruiting thing for officers, but there's more to this job than just officers, and it also explores volunteer opportunities. If you'd be interested in being a volunteer, you can now immerse yourself in our systems to see how things work if it helps you get over that hump. Go on some ride-alongs. Go see how things are from the day-to-day, if it makes you feel better.
The day-to-day stuff is, and I appreciate the fact that what the police do and their job.
And then the Citizens Academy, if you're not for that, right, the Citizens Academy, right, you'll go through, you said you know somebody, are they currently in, or are they
I don't know if he's still in it, but he was in it.
What did he think about that?
Oh, he liked it, but he had no children.
Fair. All right, well, but it's something to consider, and I'm more than happy to share that information on the next one. I don't know how that sign up, but I know people who do. I want you to know that we're a good department. I want you to know that nobody's trying to, conceal anything or blow anything off, and that we do care, me specifically, about quality control. But this isn't the hill that we want to die on this thing here. There are other things, though, that you could absolutely, help us with quality control.
Spec. So basically, your general orders are just a spec. So there appears to be absolutely no spec about if an officer loses evidence, what he should do about it.
No, there is, but when we talk about evidence, right, I think in this one, we're talking about the mismarking of the report number.
The email is evidence.
That's not evidence that we deem evidence, right? So that's that continuity of terms, right?
It's something that should have gotten to the prosecutor and did not. Actually, all three things were lost. All three things should have gone to the prosecutor. And if there was a spec, I bet you that the officer would have followed it, but there was no spec. So I don't know, there's one or two people that just didn't care, right? It's either the officer or the supervisor. Somebody didn't care. You had a month to do something about it, and they didn't do nothing.
So that's another aspect of legalities that I'm encouraging you to. I know that you have what you believe is a very good understanding, right?
I have an okay understanding.
What's that?
A spec.
Well, but you don't have it from how things actually work in this industry understanding. So when we use the term evidence, right, you're using a term that means something totally different for me than it does for you.
So
okay?
what would you call my email?
Your email, right, you have no standing, right? Your email for that case is not germane to, so it's not evidence, right?
Okay.
Because you're not a victim.
But he said he would give it to the prosecutor.
Maybe he does, right, as a courtesy, right, but that's not a violation of anything, and it's not something that's gonna tip the scale in one way or another, right? So in terms of evidence, right, you say it is, you say it's not, right?
Let's start that.
Right.
So Elizabeth's body-worn camera, evidence or not?
Elizabeth's body-worn camera.
Elizabeth's son's body-worn camera that was lost, evidence or not?
We found it, correct?
After she was charged?
Correct, right.
After she's charged, it just doesn't matter. And,
Right.
and the reason
Well,
we
here's what
found
I'm
it is
saying,
because
right?
I told you it was lost.
Right, and that's what and I'm not trying to be dismissive about it, right? But this is that part where I'm going through and I see from, outside looking in, where you created these ideas of like this, like we're just a bunch of clowns and nobody has a clue what's going on.
No, I never.
What I want
never
you to
said that.
know is how things work in our system. That you brought that objection up, or like, hey, where is this? Was a godsend in one sense, because otherwise, because she never got charged, it is very possible, if there wasn't another report in the system with that same sequential number, that the system would have been like, hey, what is going on here? How can we have a report in here? Because until those numbers, we'll just say if it's 22 for the year, right? 1, 2, 3, that's a special number. It doesn't get repeated, and it's for that particular case. Because it was so far into 22 and then 23 at midnight, our databases immediately start the first call, the first 911 call. It's 23-0001, right? Because of that number, and I think this was like 128,000 number, whatever it was, it would take us to almost October of 23 to get near that sequence where the system is going to say, how did we get a supplement with that number back here in like January or wherever it was? So it's not even going to flag the system until it gets close to that number series. And it's just a problem with the system, but you can't foresee all of these things. We do have, and this is why I want you to go on right along and see how it works. And I'm not a computer programmer, so I can't get all of the science down for you. But our database here that we use for our records management, like if I write a report about a crime that you tell me about, it's here, everybody can see it, the prosecutors can access it. The units out in the field, though, they're using a mobile version of that. And what happens is within their mobile version, it's called a validation. You click a box, and all that validation does is it makes sure that all of the essential boxes are checked. Now, it doesn't know if the information in those boxes is accurate. It just means you're good to send that packet off. That packet now sits in this limbo area until our record clerk goes through a transcription. Once it's transcribed, it now marries up with RMS, and it goes through one more validation process to make sure this, so one of the big ones, if a supplemental report comes in before the original. So the original is like, you say that you got your golf club stolen, I now have an original theft report. With an original, we can supplement. There has to be something to supplement. The problem is, I'm out in the field, I take your report, that original is still sitting on my mobile. I haven't sent it anywhere. And now you start calling like, hey, here's my driver number, here's my putter, here's a picture of this. And we try to put supplements in, it freaks out the system because they're like, how can we there is no original? That sends immediate flag. So that's one of those quality control things that immediately sets up. But in regards to this one, how can the sergeant approve a report or submit on a report that there is no supplement? That was the question he had. So we looked into that. What happens is when you have open cases sitting on a queue, it's this little system and it's got red, green, and blue, right? And it just says what the status, and there's a timer that's put on there, and guess what happens when the timer expires? It changes the color of the box, right? It's a little visual cue, so as they go through their entire squad, they can see, oh, this is Bill's queue, this is Blake's queue, this is whoever's. Hey, what's going on with this case? We need to submit on that. What's waiting on this one? Oh, I sent a supplement for that. Now, because of timing, I can approve a supplement, and it says, hey, what's your girlfriend's name? I forget.
Oh, Ray Fong.
Ray Fong. Hey, that's the Ray Fong case. I just remember approving that supplement. Well, if it's not transcribed, right, I can take that case right there because I'm in the system, pending charges, and it routes it to a new area. Well, that supplement, because it's a 22 dash versus a 23 dash, they're not marrying up. The fact that it got charged without that, like I said, in your world, that would have never happened, right? You couldn't get a product to sale we had to have 2 layers of checks fail to make that happen. That happened is more of the, it's the exception, it's not the rule. But it does it did, obviously. I'm still shocked that it could, but it does. And we don't even know that it's missing until you raise it up. Once you ask the question, they go through IT ticket, and IT is like, oh, is this the one? One number off, right? 22 versus, or 23, it should have been at 22 dash. Boom, okay, there's everything. It's all reconciled, but now the case is over, right? So it's kind of a moot point, but we finally got it, and it's a good reminder of making sure our phones link up with our cameras. So in a perfect world, I don't do anything. At the end of the day, I dock my camera, everything syncs up. Even if I'm not on the call, it knows proximity of where I was to a call, and it'll probably say, hey, were you on this call? So you can kind of link it up. But if I'm on the call, it links up with our dispatch codes. It automatically puts and the idea is that it's error-free. It's always error-free until it's not, right? We have found out, and usually it's when somebody goes to recall video, there are just bugs that occur where it doesn't auto-link. And now we have thousands of videos that are not coded correctly and people have to manually go in, and that's where we run into problems. Because some will put in 20, 24, dash whatever, and some will just put like 24. It shouldn't matter, but when you get into the bigger numbers, it does matter, right? So if you have a sequence of like 3 3s and something, and they only put 2 3s, once somebody overrides it, that video is harder to find. So if you're just running video checks off of those report numbers and it was keyed in wrong, errors are going to happen with that. Until we identify them, we don't even know, because what do we pull? We pull what's available off of that report number. And sometimes those videos are just sitting coded incorrectly, and it could be an important video. Luckily with this call, it wasn't. It worked out actually to your girlfriend's benefit. And luckily the victims, and I just say that as a legal term, right? I'm not implying that they were, in need of police services. They never sought to have anything refiled. So, I mean, if I was the lawyer, I would say, hey.
I would have wished they had, because they would have lost.
Well, you don't want to wish they had, because it still goes down as it's still the domestic violence thing, right? It's never good for that. So then we found those problems and rectified them, and then it was just another of like, well, how did this happen? Well, we're in the people business. People they're going to make mistakes. What I will apologize to you about is that nobody ever took the time to understand why this was such a hiccup for you. And my assumption is that it became a hiccup for you because in the absence of good information, you went down this dark hole of, hey, you hid this, you're trying to hide it from me. Oh, now that I bring it up, it miraculously shows up. It's like, no, that's how finding stuff works, right? So I don't want you
I never thought that they hid any of this.
Okay.
I just knew that they lost it and they took no corrective action.
Well, I'm implying that because your correspondence wasn't it odd that once I ask about it, then it shows up? And I'm like,
No,
I don't think it's odd at all, right?
I never once said that the officer did anything wrong.
Mm.
Your front desk constantly was saying, oh, you have everything, you have everything. No, it's right here. You just, no,
Right.
It doesn't exist.
And that's why I want you, if you're willing to put the time in, come see how chaotic their job.
No, I
don't
understand they don't understand, but the bottom line is they made a lot of claims and were actually not very helpful. And I knew, because I can read your stuff, I knew that it's not true, right? It's like, and I understand that they're not police officers,
They don't
understand, right?
Right.
But they're making all these claims.
Mhm.
In fact, Mr. Reed was standing right behind April. He knew that the stuff had been lost.